This is Matthew Kratter from Trade University, and today I want to answer the question, should we put car titles and property deeds on Bitcoin? This is part of the whole larger discussion around ordinals and inscriptions, what people are loosely calling NFTs on Bitcoin. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I'll stick a link in the description notes below to this video talking about whether ordinals and inscriptions have ruined Bitcoin. But for the purposes of this video, we can just understand these to be text snippets or videos or JPEGs that are being embedded directly into the Bitcoin blockchain using the Taproot upgrade and some software that's been written, some protocol that's been written to do that. But this leads to some further questions, which is what I want to talk about today. Here is one from _CAM_SAM_VIDS. Are there valid use cases for these functions? Would a car title or property deed be worthwhile listing on the blockchain? Planet Frosty suggests NFTs be used for real property or physical assets. This is just more protection for our property. So I wanted to address this. What are the advantages and disadvantages to putting legal documents in general on the Bitcoin blockchain, or really on any blockchain in general? Now, the advantages, especially of the Bitcoin blockchain, is it's immutable, it cannot be censored. Legal docs will remain there forever. Now, this might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what the future holds, so you always have to be careful about wanting to save something forever. It might turn out to come back and bite you. The third advantage would be the blockchain provides a pretty good timestamp within a few minutes, assuming that you trust the local timestamp of that's on there. But at least it tells you that within this certain period, the document was loaded on there. Now, what are the disadvantages? The disadvantages would be to putting legal documents on the Bitcoin blockchain would be it clutters the blockchain with non-financial transactions. And I still consider Bitcoin its primary use case and the one that's really going to take off and comprise most of block space in the future is actual Bitcoin, traditional financial transactions, not putting monkey JPEGs on there. And so if you start putting legal documents on there, you're going to fill up block space. Again, block space is limited, so this isn't really an attack vector because you just have to compete with your fees to get your financial transactions onto the blockchain or your non-financial transactions. But I consider this a form of clutter, especially if we can't come up with a really good justification for putting legal documents on the Bitcoin blockchain. But here's the really big problem with this, and the biggest disadvantage as I see it, is that there's no enforcement mechanism available to the Bitcoin blockchain. So for example, if you're holding or moving Bitcoin itself on the Bitcoin network, the Bitcoin network will enforce property rights and consensus rules, and this is because Bitcoin or Satoshis are the native token of the network. By contrast, the Bitcoin network and really any blockchain has no way of enforcing real-world property rights of cars, of houses, of outside things. It can certainly enforce very good, strong property rights for Bitcoin itself. But when it comes to external objects, it becomes very difficult. For that, you still need judges, you need police, you're probably going to have to interact with the judicial system and the legal system, as well as the enforcement piece of the police, whether you want to or not, because you have to have this connection between the blockchain and the real world. So why bother putting legal documents on the blockchain? I would say a better case for the blockchain would be using it as a free speech repository, putting various things there that you want to remain there. For example, you could put the US Constitution or parts of the Bible or the Quran or some sort of forbidden documents, maybe a forbidden novel or forbidden poem or forbidden picture, etc. This might be a use of it. I don't think it's the highest use of Bitcoin's blockchain, but again, at this point, we can't stop anyone from doing it. Legal documents make a lot less sense to me than using the Bitcoin blockchain as a free speech repository. I'll link to this video in the description notes below if you want to check it out a bit more. And while I'm here, I just ask you to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this video so far. Better yet, as I said, just use Bitcoin for financial transactions. And I certainly won't be sad if Bitcoin NFTs migrate to other chains, especially as fees spike and hopefully drive some of these NFTs off of the Bitcoin blockchain. I think eventually they will be forced to migrate due to higher Bitcoin transaction fees. And we have seen this. We saw a lot of NFTs move from Ethereum to Solana and Polygon as Ethereum became more and more expensive. And a lot of NFT holders just want to pay the lowest transaction fee. They don't really care about the security guarantees of the blockchain. And this is witnessed well by the fact that they're even using Ethereum to begin with, which is a bit of a joke, given that it runs on proof of stake and it had this huge pre-mine and it has all these insiders, etc. So what I'm arguing, and I've argued in previous videos, is that monkey JPEGs can never compete with Bitcoin's use and highest use as a global financial settlement network. This is related to the question we've talked about whether Bitcoin should be backed by something. And again, this is where we always run into trouble when we try to connect these blockchain systems to the outside world. And so this is sort of a parallel discussion to talking about putting legal documents on there and whether the Bitcoin blockchain or network can enforce real-world property rights outside of Bitcoin, the native token asset. You have the same problem when you have a token that's backed by an external thing like US dollars or gold, because you have to rely on a trusted third party to store and custody that underlying asset, as well as to facilitate redemptions, converting the token back into the underlying asset, and vice versa. As I argued in that previous video, this itself is a huge attack vector. If you want to attack the token, you only need to attack the custodian or other centralized third party. And people should have already learned this lesson from the failure of the gold standard in the 20th century and Nixon suspending the US dollar's convertibility into gold. This is a perfect example of failure mode for money that is backed by something else. And this is why we don't need Bitcoin to be backed by anything. It's backed by itself, by the security guarantees of the network, by the strong property rights, by the huge wall of hash rate, etc. Now, some people will argue that you could just use Ethereum because it has smart contracts. You can use this in the legal industry. And of course, this is what Consensus, which is a huge, controls a lot of Ethereum because they control MetaMask and they control Infura. This is what they argue, that you should use Ethereum for all your legal needs. The problem with this is I don't think smart contracts solve this same problem. You still have the real world enforcement problem when it comes to physical objects like cars or houses. There's an additional problem which we haven't talked about too much on this channel, but you may be aware of, called the Oracle problem. And in a nutshell, the problem is this, that blockchains are isolated from the outside world. They're very good at verifying stuff that happens on chain, as we've been discussing. So for example, they're very good at verifying, did someone sign with the correct private key to unlock Bitcoin from this address? They're good at stuff like that, but they're not good at importing and verifying real world data. Even Bitcoin's price is not really on the blockchain. That's an external thing, and it trades for different prices in different places. So the Oracle problem is basically, how do we get reliable information from the outside world onto the blockchain, or allow it to communicate with data that's on the blockchain? So for example, how do we really know, let's say we have a betting contract, a smart contract that allows you to bet on Monday Night Football, the outcome of a game. How do we really know that a certain team won Monday Night Football without having to trust a third party? That in most times, in peaceful times, in normal times, it's not a problem. This is something that we could probably trust some TV network feed or something like that. But in a hostile adversarial environment, which is what you always need to build for, how are you going to trust a third party that can be bribed or compromised? Again, a bet on Monday Night Football is a fairly trivial usage, but you can imagine very much more high stakes smart contracts like this. So you're left with the Oracle problem, and as far as I can tell, the Oracle problem has never been solved in computer science. If you're a computer scientist and you think that I'm wrong about this, please mention it in the comment section below. I'd be curious to hear. But this is at least what I hear, not being an expert in the area. And I would say that any claims that it has been solved are pretty scammy. So for example, there's going to be the Chainlink army that's going to come and tell you that Chainlink handles this, Link handles this. Chris Black has a good take on this. The entire DeFi industry, VCs, DAOs, devs, everyone is colluding to hide the fact that if 5 people chosen by Chainlink, this is the Chainlink multisig, ever decide or are forced to go rogue, the entire DeFi ecosystem could be intentionally destroyed in the blink of an eye. This is another topic, I think a good topic for a video if I actually cared about DeFi, which I care about less and less because it's really decentralized in name only. But if you scroll down, you can see, for example, that Chainlink multisig can add or remove any source from any price feed. So this is not a real solution to the Oracle problem. And we can see that it looks like a lot of these other tokens in DeFi land, just a complete pump and dump because they never really solved anything. It's a joke. The whole thing is backed by multisig. The question is who's running that multisig? Who are those 5 people? They're probably a bunch of them are venture capitalists, etc. So this is not a serious solution. So basically this is the Oracle problem, and it's part of this whole problem of connecting the blockchain to the outside world. And I think for this reason and for the other reasons that I enumerated, it doesn't make sense to put legal documents onto the Bitcoin blockchain. Feel free to spam other chains with them if you would like, though. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.